Hello, everyone. This is Mary Kurek with Frontrunners Innovate, and I have yet another familiar face with me today. If you're a regular with us, and you will see Ethy Levy, and she is out of Israel and is an impact investor, has worked very, extensively, I think, over a number of years with raising funds to impact climate, agriculture, all the things that go into, what happens up there and what happens down here in between, in terms of how we live and breathe and coexist with our planet, I should say. And has lots of, I think the last time we spoke, Ethy, you shared with me some of the most innovative approaches on farming I have ever heard in my life. And I have shared those forward many times, so thank you. So we're going to get into you in just a minute. Our special guest today is Gaurav Somwanshi. And he is in India. Again, Ethy is in Israel. He is in India. And wow, there is probably not an award I can think of. You probably had one already in the vein of world problem solver and young leader coming up, and being able to take your knowledge, your experience so far, and moving it into a place that's going to change lives around the globe. So thank you. He is the CEO and co-founder of EmerTech Innovations. We're going to find out a little bit about that, his background, and where he's headed with all the cool things he's doing. But 2019 Dalai Lama Fellow. So yay, nice work. I think probably with what I think is the most interesting thing that you're doing that I caught right away, that caught my attention and moved me towards you, is agriculture and blockchain. It's kind of marrying those two, and how that benefits the farming community, and how that benefits everybody from the farming community out to the consumer and all the vendors around them. So we're looking forward to getting to know you. But Ethy, if you will share a little bit about yourself before we dive in.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me, Mary, and really great to meet with Gaurav, and soon having, I'm sure, a very exciting discussion. So as you mentioned, I'm based in Israel. I was with the Israeli government for almost 20 years in dealing with international trade and investment, and posted in different countries as a trade commissioner for Israel. So I spent 5 years in Australia, where we did lots of projects in areas of agriculture and food sustainability. And in the past 5 years, I'm focusing most of my efforts in those areas of agri-food and climate, both as an entrepreneur, but also as an investor. So I'm managing a newly established Israeli fund called Kinneret Impact Ventures. We're investing in early stages technology startup in those areas of agriculture, food, water, climate, which is becoming a very, very active ecosystem in Israel. And I'm also an entrepreneur. I have a venture in the area of food waste, and actually India might be our first market. We're basically helping the farmer reduce their food loss and waste, and turning their fruits and vegetables into highly nutritional ingredients with novel processing. So it's very exciting to be on both ends of the chain, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion today. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. You just brought another name to mind that remind me after this at some point. I need to introduce you to a gal in Thailand that's working hard on what you just shared, that could probably use some of your brain power there. So Gaurav, you are just amazing. I think there's a backstory here we first need to hear. So share a little bit of your history of what brought you into the work that you're doing now, if you will.
Yes, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity, because it is opportunities like this which are most needed by entrepreneurs and early stage startups. And thank you so much, Ethy, as well, for giving your time. To just talk briefly about it, because when it comes to blockchain, I think everyone has a story regarding what's your blockchain story? How did you come to blockchain?
How did you come to it?
Yeah. So for me, I'm a computer science engineer. I've done my management course as well. But I was always wanting to do something into the social impact sector. So I began with an NGO by the name of Carl Sagan, Saganite Science Education Association, because I just love him and his writings. And for 2 years, I've tried to focus regarding how we can you do some impact within the education sector. Then I had a startup, and just out of pure, coincidental way, there was this meeting where my startup colleague and me, both of us went to work for PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. But I was always wanting to avoid corporate as much as I can, but because of some, I had to compromise on some of the early teen principles that I had built for myself. And I realized that, okay, I do need the money and do need the experience polished on my CV. But the thing was, and I'm so glad that it happened, that I started working. The client was the government of Chhattisgarh. Chhattisgarh is a state in India, and it has the highest population in terms of proportion of tribals. And the challenge statement was to figure out how we can automate or make more efficient the welfare schemes, because that is where the welfare schemes are most needed to help out the populations and to find out any fraudulent accounts, to bring more transparency into the system. And my, you could say, client, or rather mentor, he later became a mentor, was Mr. Alex Paul Menon. He was a bureaucrat. He is a bureaucrat right now, and he was heading the entire IT infrastructure for the state. And he basically gave us a free hand. He said, do any kind of exploration that you want, but bring me good results. And I love reading. So yes, I've read thousands of books. I've read, I mean, just because I just love to read a lot. And then when the internet came, I just love randomly reading on Wikipedia. So I was just reading how Bitcoin works, and the word blockchain came. And on the ground, I was facing a problem in which the different departments of government were not sharing data with each other, which was leading to problems at the citizen level. So that's when I realized, yeah, maybe blockchain can do something. And that is the first entry into blockchain. So that's the backstory. So for 3 years, I worked in the government sector. And then when I met the farmers, that was another life-changing moment. That was the beginning of the startup and working in agriculture. So total, you could say 5.5 years with blockchain. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So now tell us the genesis of the company that you're with now as co-founders. Is this the same company, the same startup?
Yes.
Okay. So Emer Technology. Okay. So tell me what you're doing right now with the farming community, because I've read some pretty interesting, let's see, claims and numbers that you've been working with the farmers with the blockchain project. Yeah.
So it was a coincidental meeting. I realized that in order for blockchain to work out, I would need to conduct many workshops so that the domain expertise people would understand the technology, and that is how we can begin. One of these workshops happened to be with the largest farming group in India of fruits and vegetable farmers. So Sahyadri Farms is a special entity. We call them FPC, Farmer Producer Company, is a very recent entity in which just like private limited, NGO, LLP, and so on, in a farmer producer company, only farmers can be the shareholders. So if you and me want to become investors in that company, we can't. Another special unique thing about this entity, and it's very recent, hardly 12, 13 years old. Another unique thing about this is that let us say all the three of us are part of a farmer producer company, and I own 20% stake, you own 30 and 50 and so on. But when it comes to the decision making, it is one vote per person. So regardless of my shareholding, I will have one vote, so that this incentivizes the farming community to work together. Because in a setting like India, where 67% of our population, out of more than 1.34 billion and so on, 67% of the population is still dependent heavily on agriculture. That is the largest demographic you could find in the world. And the problems are, you could say, mostly because of the small land holdings. And every generation, those holdings become smaller and smaller and smaller because of hereditary rules of properties transfer. And suddenly you have a case in which there's climate change happening. There's a globalization at your doorstep, knocking into its competition. And you have just 1 or 2 acres of land. So are you even going to invest there? What are the yields that you can expect from there? So Mr. Vilas Shinde, that is the name of the pioneering person that I need to mention over here, because he was, as a farmer, he did his education in agriculture itself. So he began which is now today, he began in 2010 Sahyadri Farms, which is now India's largest group of farmers. So more than 13,000 farmers are connected over there. Primarily, they began with grapes, but now they're diversified into other fruits and vegetables, and uh, also cotton that I'll speak on later. So the live project that we are doing with them is for cotton. So the idea began that after 2 days of a workshop, while I was already working for PwC, I just had a workshop on a weekend. I explained to them what blockchain can do in our regional language, Marathi language. So it was the farmers, Mr. Vilas Shinde and others, who told me how blockchain can be used at beginning with, let's say, traceability, then two-way transparency, where farmers can also see what's happening with their produce, and so on. And that was so promising to me and my co-founders of that time that we decided to leave our jobs and begin. So EmerTech simply means emerging technologies, a short abbreviation for that. And we got immediately pre-seed funding and incubation from one of the most premier technological institutes, Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, SINE. And the journey began. So for 2.5 years, we were only at the farmer's location. And that is where many insights kind of came into our life. And as I said, I've been conducting workshops, hundreds of workshops throughout India. So I've been was already scouting for bright minds. So immediately I had interns who are now full-time employees, and now we are also flatmates. Since 3.5 years, we are flatmates also, because when you are working in such a domain, you need to do the opposite of work from home. We have to work in the office together. We have to stay in the home together. And so that has been the journey. So it began with digitizing the entire value chain, and wherever digitization is already there, integrating it with blockchain so that we could give birth to traceability. So that was the beginning of it. Of course, later it diversified, and I can talk about it later, but that is the origin story in short.
Yeah, I want to give Ethy some time to chat with you, because I think from the perspective of both of the hats that you talked about wearing, impact investing and also your entrepreneurship endeavor, your own venture, I think he probably has some insights there, or maybe some connections. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's extremely interesting. First of all, it's amazing to, your journey from NGO to government to consulting, and then to being an entrepreneur and leading your own company. So, you've been in all the different parts of the ecosystem. And actually, you mentioned the farmer producer company, and it's really interesting because the fund that I am managing is owned by two of the largest farmer producer companies in Israel. So in Israel, we have agricultural cooperative, which are called kibbutzim. The kibbutz, which, everyone in the kibbutz, all the members share the same load of work. All the salaries go into one pool and everyone get the same services. And those kibbutzim, they were the first group in Israel to do agriculture. So the fund that I'm managing is owned by 50 of those kibbutzim, which are grouped into two farmer producer company, exactly like you mentioned. So it's really really interesting, this connection as well. And they've decided and they've realized that they need to invest in the future of agriculture, and they need to, even though Israel is super efficient in agriculture, they know that it's not going to be sustainable. They have to adopt new practices, and they have to look into future technologies, and that's why they want to be exposed to what happens at the early stage of development. The second area that is super interesting is the issue of traceability. And that takes me to the venture that I've launched with my partner, which is called Infinity Fresh, where we want to bring ingredients to food producers with full traceability. So all the way from knowing who was the farmer, when, where is he located, when he last did some, put some pesticides on the crops, all the way to the manufacturing plant that will use this ingredient. We also have some processing in between, but blockchain is a very important part of what we're going to do. So maybe we can even integrate what you're doing into our solution. So it's really exciting, because today, you buy ingredients, and sometimes even very expensive ingredients, and you don't really know where they come from or the quality until you get it, on the other side of the world. And I think that for India, which is an amazing, amazing market, an amazing country with the potential to be a leading economy. You're already an amazing economy, but there's a potential here for growth that needs this improvement in terms of the quality control and traceability and food waste, which is huge in India. So what you're doing is extremely important and can bring an amazing value to the agricultural sector. So I'm really looking forward to hearing more about what you're doing and how you're doing it, and especially with small farm holders. How do you make them adopt technologies? How do you deal with connectivity, with being able to deal with technology that not all those small farm holders were exposed to? So I have lots of questions in the pipeline, but I'd love to hear more about how you're doing that.
Absolutely. Now that's a really beautiful, like the overlap. In fact, there's a reverse relationship also, because the platform which we started working on, the first blockchain platform which we started working on, was by an Israeli, Dr. Gideon Greenspan. He's in Tel Aviv, and the name of his blockchain platform is Multichain, and the name of his company is Coin Sciences Limited. It's in Tel Aviv, and it's a beautiful blockchain platform, wonderful for scalability. If you don't want to introduce tokens into the platform, that's also well and fine. It has something called smart filters, which act as a beautiful alternative to smart contracts. So yeah, and another part regarding the pieces of information that you wanted to convey. So what we do is, whether you're buying coriander or okra or tomatoes or chilies, more than 110 crop varieties. So all of these final SKUs have a small QR code on top of them, and I'll share the images also. And once you scan the QR code from any camera, it directly redirects you to a page in which you can see an entire trace. Over there, we segregate the information into three parts. I mean, it's all seamlessly integrated, but in terms of module, first is know your farmer. So farmer photograph, details, as well as any other quirky information that we've already captured. Know your food. So within know your food, the freshness, when was the date of the harvest, and if there are any third-party certifications to it, for example, organic, fair trade, and so on. And the third and the most important one is now this part. For that, you don't need blockchain technology, anything. You need willpower. And the farmer collectives had this willpower because they said, in the third part of the transparency and traceability, they want to know what happens with your money. So let us say, if the final SKU the customer buys for $1, they can see how much of that $1 is going to the farmer. Let us say 30 cents. So what is happening with the rest of the 70? So a demarcation of that. It is exactly opposite of the NDA culture that we have. We sign non-disclosure agreements everywhere. It is exactly opposite to that. We are just disclosing. And if so, those kind of the project in fruits and vegetable, it lasted for 2.5 years before migrating to cotton, because we felt cotton is where we can generate more attention. But during that span, we generated 5.2 million QR codes. And daily we were printing around 2,000 to 25,000 QR codes. And the demand really went up during the lockdown times, because that's when people were ordering food online directly from the farmers group. And yeah, the challenges which you just mentioned. So there were many insights, because what we learned from existing platforms, we were of course not the first ones to do traceability. We had, no need to name them, but there were many big platforms by big multinational companies. But just by looking at them, you could see that they won't go beyond the pilot. Like the most crucial insight, if I've ever learned during all of this time, is that there was a time when you could use the hype of blockchain to make people do double work, that whatever you are doing manually or between your outdated digital modules, do it there, but also replicate it on our blockchain platform also. This is literally how some of the major blockchain platforms have worked, not trying to integrate, not trying to build modules within, but just asking to do it. And for a while it worked. Of course it worked, because that was the whole hype of blockchain within this. And then it suddenly stopped working, because then people realized that it's not efficient. So the major insight, the first thing that we started, because we were not trying to take a solution and thrust it upon farmers, we were just doing the reverse. So between the NGO and the corporate, I already started working in our education startup, where we did a grand failure kind of thing. We built a education software, and we realized, and we were assuming that the schools would just use it. No, this was way before. So that experience of a failure was with me, that you should not build a product and just thrust it upon people. So what we tried to do was just understand, for example, so can we help the farmers to do their work in a much more efficient manner, or can we at least reduce their burden? And traceability is something which should be a byproduct of it. The moment you make traceability as the primary goal, that is what I feel is the recipe towards failure. The recipe should be that let there be different modules. So we have, so that is how we ended up doing it. That there is a module for farmer database, there is a module for inventory, there is a module for printing SKU labels, there is a module for tracking your SKUs. And if the farmer collective is already using one of them, for example, the largest collective, they already have an inventory management system, SAP. So one of the first integrations of SAP with blockchain happened with us. That integration took us around like a months, if not a year, because of that is what happens when you are working with a monolithic system as huge as that one. But that was necessary. Then the second insight was inventory integration with SAP is necessary for one farmer collective, but there are 10,000 other farmer collectives who are never going to use something like SAP for the next 100 years, given their size and scale. So we ended up building something called as an Invento, a very cheap and affordable inventory management system whose backend is linked with blockchain. So just by trying to help the farmer producer companies do their work and build the traceability from the backend with these different modules was the crucial learning. We did not still have like a monolithic platform, like a plug-in and play. That is what most people love to brag. But I believe that in a particular case like agriculture, we cannot have a retail shop of clothes. We have to begin like tailors, like a service company. And once you have enough tailored suits, then maybe you can have a retail shop of tailor, like a proper SaaS one. But it's a long route. But yeah, I think that's how it could really prosper. Yeah.
Ethy, did you have
Amazing. Yeah, very interesting, and definitely a conversation to continue regarding the adoption of small farm holders. I'm actually doing a project now for the Inter-American Development Bank for small farm holders in Latin America, and how to integrate technology around agriculture and sustainability. So I think that we can learn a lot from Gaurav, what you're doing in India. So I'll be happy to continue this discussion afterwards. But I'm keen to hear as well. And Mary, if you have another question before that, feel free. But to hear, what you're aiming for, or really, what's and the next stage for you with your venture, and also, as Mary mentioned before, what do you need and how can we help you?
Oh, yes. So right now what we need is, frankly speaking, so for example, we have a module in which we track the expenses as well as track the revenue generated by the farmer. Why? Because I'm just trying to give an example of the kind of need that we have. Why? Because in India, none of the people in the informal sector have a credit score. Like in US, you have FICO scores. In India, we have something called a CIBIL score. They don't get education loans, bike loans, personal loans, and they're completely out of the economy. But
do
at
they
least
have bank accounts, by the way? Do they have how do you deal with the financing? Because I know that in Latin America, the fintech part of the thing is the key issue.
over here, they do have bank accounts. Why? Because around a few years ago, there was an initiative where they opened up bank accounts for nearly everyone. No frills account, no zero savings account. And they also, so I was working in the government. The first blockchain project for 3 years was to ensure that all the cash payments are to be done digitally. So over here also, the payments that happen to the farmer, most of them can happen digitally also, even in remote sources, because now smartphones adoption has become really good even among the farmer community. Now imagine if we know their income, all we need to do is track their expenses. So we have built a module and we are in testing phase, but we need much larger partners to test it with to see so we are already building plot specific profit and loss statements and balance sheets as well as consolidated one. So the plots, if they are to be mortgaged, they should be done on the financial merit of it and not just based on the banker's volition. At the same time, we are also enabling the farmers' own individual P&L statements and balance scores, which hopefully should act as a proxy for the absence of the formal credit scores. Now, this is something which has already been done by a beautiful venture in Indonesia called Hara Token. Over there, their methodology is outsourcing the information, crowdsourcing the information. In our case, it would be to directly infuse it within the models that they use daily. So, but that just sounds very good if I'm saying it or on paper or if I show you how the module works, but it doesn't really work unless there are enough numbers to test it with. So we need partners first and foremost. The second is the kind of outlook that we have. It's not, let's say, only specific to one region. It is specific to the demographic of small landholding, so which is a global demographic. So trying to have more outreach partners, that's another thing. And of course, so we've already raised the first round of pre-seed funding with IIT Bombay. So as we go ahead, we'll also be looking for funding or grant opportunities to work with relevant sectors. But if you could get a strategic partnership, that would be always preferable than just blank capital. So these are the three major ways. And of course, some initiatives like Frontrunners, which ensure that the word goes out as much as possible. One of the ways that I've been trying to do is, so I've written the first book in blockchain in Marathi language. I'll just show it to you. So I wrote in agriculture newspapers also, which is read by farmers in Marathi. Now I'm way more comfortable with English rather than my own mother tongue. But I realized that you have to go regional. So so imagine it was because of all the Marathi communication. Marathi is the language, my native language, that all of these projects actually ended up happening. Because I see the LinkedIn world of how they treat blockchain. Constantly new words are coming up. Now they're speaking about ZKP. Tomorrow it will be something else, another. And I see that the place where it is supposed to make an impact haven't even heard of the word blockchain. So I think it is our responsibility to have a better reach out. So uh, as I said, the solution that we are working on, 1% of the brain belongs to us, 99% belongs to the farmers. So we need partnerships in that sense. Yeah.
Well stated. Well stated. Ethy, I know you have to leave in just a minute. Do you have any final words before you take off, and then I will finish up with Gaurav?
Sure. I have two very quick questions. So one is to understand what you are doing in cotton, because we have lots of Israeli companies in that space providing technologies for cotton producer. So if there's a way to integrate what you're doing with what they're doing, I think it could bring you leverage and it can bring them access to Indian farmer. This is one. And the second one that you mentioned is that you are tracking as well how much of the money actually goes to the farmer, which I think is, an amazing concept and very, very impactful. I think that could be extremely appealing to impact investors that are investing in India. So also if you could say, a few words about that. And then I'll leave you to conclude with Mary.
Thank you so much, because the cotton project is the one which is live. And so far, so what do we do? So there's a cotton farmer producer company near my hometown, led by a farmer named Irfan Sheikh, in which 137 farmers are there. So on a pilot basis, but it's a completely full production level. So that is where the cotton procurement happens. Then we track the information in the ginning, spinning, knitting, dyeing, fabric journey of the cotton. So and at the final point, it again comes back to the facility of as I said, the India's largest farmer group, Sahyadri Farms, in which they have a sister company, which is a private limited company, but owned entirely by the farmers only. That is where we print QR codes on top of those t-shirts. Why? Because we've all been tracking it in any case from its origin source. So we know the wastage, we know who are the actors involved. So we are able to print QR codes. You can directly purchase. I mean, international deliveries are not on yet, but in India, you can directly purchase it by going on www.ru.world. The name RU is specifically there because it acts like a marketing help also. Are you aware? Are you transparent? Are you conscious about the farmers? And so on. And that in the name of the farmer-owned company is Sahyadri Farm Sustainable Grassroots Initiative, 100% owned by farmers. We are the ones providing technology to them. So far, more than 45,000 t-shirts have already been sold, and each of them has a QR code on it. It is also linked with the question, the second question that you have. So when it comes to the fruits and vegetables, regarding the financial transparency aspect, so when it comes to the procurement part itself, the moment that you are inviting the farmers' produce, if at that time the payment that is happening to the farmers happens digitally, I'm just telling you how easily it could be done. So that payment is captured. Now all that remains is tracking that SKU and seeing its change in ownership, or as long as it is not mixed. Fruits and vegetables, they ensure that there is no mixing that happens on the ground. So the wastage is already recorded. The final MRP is also recorded. The different costs you can pick up from SAP or pick up from any of their financial systems. And the QR code will simply have the information. Why? Because that amount of SKU compared to the entire, let's say I've procured 100 tons at $1,000, it is easy for me to know how much of those 250 grams after calculating dehydration and wastage loss is also there, which is the amount which basically the farmer is getting. Now that requires quite a lot of integrations. So within the cotton aspect, we are able to tell all the geolocations of all the processes, the certifications, and soon the financial transparency will also go live. And one more thing that we do as a kind of a marketing thing. So once you scan the trace from the QR code for cotton t-shirts, the entire trace opens up. Over in cotton, it's impossible to have farmer level traceability. So it's always batches of farmers. Why? Because at ginning level itself, the first point where cotton is converted to bales and the cotton seeds are removed, and 35% only cotton goes ahead, the rest is the weight of the cotton seeds. That is where mixing happens, and mixing is inevitable. So we are able to show lots of batches of farmers, that this is the batch of farmers, and the financial transparency aspect kicks into play because everyone else has agreed to share their costs. It is the opposite of an NDA that we have signed with the different job work partners, where they are comfortable in sharing their their financial information, and then we go ahead with it, because we realize that in our entire talks about sustainability, if the farmer's livelihood is not made a part of it, and in a country like India, where farmer suicides happen on a daily basis, I'm saying it without an exaggeration, it's on a daily basis that it happens. Uh, Over there, if the farmer's sustenance itself is not a part of the paradigm, then how will things change? A fair trade certification tries to make some impact, but at the farmer level, individual level, it just maybe falls short of how it could actually could be done. So yeah, that's I hope that I can elaborate more if you want me to on any
They're
part.
very interesting. I really have to leave the conversation, but I think that there's so many extremely relevant aspects of what you're doing. And I'm starting to think about some people that I'll be happy to connect to you. So I think that it was a very good introduction and very stimulating as well. I'll send you a message afterwards with some ideas for potential partnership, collaboration, but I'm really congratulating you on what you're doing. It's extremely impactful, and not only for for the farmer, but I think for India as a very, very strong player in the global agricultural place. I think this is one way to help India export more of the products and reducing waste. I think that will also lead to reducing waste, which is, for me, it's one of my key missions. I don't think that we need to produce much more. We need to be more efficient with what we are producing today. So I'll be very interested to to hear more later on and to ask some additional question. But thank you so much, Mary, for including me today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
We
Ethy.
appreciate it.
I'll take just 5 seconds more, Ethy. I'm sorry, because you mentioned waste picking. So one pilot which we are just beginning right now is with the world's largest recyclers of plastic, Gemini Corporation. And over there, the challenge statement is that the people who pick up our waste, they don't even have smartphones. So how are you going to digitize that? So we've thought of a solution. We are going to work on ground again, but that is also something I'd love to share with you. Yeah.
Sure. I did a lot in recycling, so happy to discuss that later on. Thanks again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the conversation.
Thank you, Ethy.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it very much. I'll see you again soon, hopefully. Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Bye-bye. Wonderful. So Gaurav, that was a very good sort of exchange between you and somebody who has a vested interest in the types of things that you're doing. And I really, believe what she said is what you're doing is life-changing and country-changing. From the standpoint of how I operate globally, in business development for, in all impact spaces. Certainly what you're doing is relevant to just 2 or 3 of the United Nations SDGs that I can think of right now. Where, I know you kind of indicated what you're doing now and what you might need to get you further, but I want to drill down in that partnership piece that you mentioned, that what you were looking for, because I want you to identify in as much detail as you can as what types of specific partners you're looking for that would help you get those numbers that you were talking about, that would make sense for you that will help you grow. So, from a global perspective, would it matter where the partners are? Or are you looking just inside India? And if so, what types of partnerships are you looking for?
Yes, thank you so much, Mary, because that's a very important question. When it comes to the geographies, the moment we say blockchain, all the borders fade away in any case, because that is the beauty of blockchain. So the demographic is mostly small and holding farmers, but as I was just speaking to Ethy, small and holding farmers is a problem of a value chain. So there are similar allied value chains, like let's say garbage recycling, plastic recycling, especially. So over there also we are experimenting and seeing how blockchain can provide an input, can take us ahead. And now when this is happening, why are we even able to think about plastic recycling as a pilot? We are able to do that because we happen to got connected out of pure coincidence with the plastic recycler of that scale, who can kind of help us with not just the insights but the simple funds to bring the groundwork as well as the blockchain coding in place and get the ball rolling. The ones who are happy to have collaborative experiments in digitization. So those kind of partners are absolutely helpful. Now you must have seen about things like even palm oil traceability is now going to is already a very big deal within the European sections. Now there are 2 ways that the push can come from. In our case, the first thing that we began, the farmers themselves were pushing for traceability and transparency. If there are similar, and of course there are similar entities outside, like Ethy herself mentioned that she's working with farmer producer companies within Israel. So that is a beautiful way to work ahead. The another way to work ahead is the other end of the value chain. Because today, talking about sustainability, ESG, carbon credits, transparency, fair equity, those might be, let's say, a brand improvement strategies or something to ask for premium from to get a premium kind of labeling. But 10 years down the line, it will become a part of compliance. But there are companies right now who want to have that first more advantage and begin with it. For example, like De Beers is doing it traceability for blood diamonds to remove blood diamonds from the value chain. So a huge partner who has access to the value chain and wants to leverage blockchain as a technology, that is something like that's the perfect one, like the perfect strategic partnership. In absence of that, at least the other end of the value chain should be there. The middle part of the value chain might not be that much lucrative, you could say. And then there are, let's say, there are foundations which specifically help out people working in certain sections. So me and my team have just begun researching which are the foundations with which we have an overlap in our philosophies and overlap in our outlook. So if there are some foundations who do the work of support in terms of grants or support in terms of partnerships, that would be lovely. For just to give an example, like the Dalai Lama Fellowship, now that when they got to know about our project, the way that they helped was very beautiful, you could say, a year-long training that they gave, in which ethical leadership became a cornerstone of the entire training, and that gave me grounding as a person. And even though it was just a training and one-on-one sessions, that helped a lot, which I was able to pass on to my team. We had so much tough time to survive during as a startup during the lockdown, but somehow we managed that, and I'm thankful. But yeah, I mean, you could see that there are multiple ways in which we could be supported. But uh, right now, I'm just trying to explain it as much better in as much as I can, like where we stand, what we intend to do, and what's our journey been. So that maybe you would be also in a better place to say that you should be doing this, you should be talking with them. Yeah.
Well, I think this is marvelous, and I can't imagine anybody seeing this that has any kind of, relevance to the subject matter, that isn't impressed and, influenced by what you're doing and would also like to help. So we're gonna hope that from your mouth to their ears that they get to hear. And along with Etty, there will probably be one or two others that maybe I can send your way to have a conversation that I think would be mutually beneficial. So I think you've started at the right place, and this is it's just amazing what you're doing. What you've accomplished so far is wow, like I say, life-changing for the people in India and all over the world. So thank you for being the global front runner that you are. And so I'm going to ask you to hang on for just a minute while I tell everybody else, if you're watching this on YouTube at our channel there, go to www.frontrunnersinnovate.com. You'll get this interview and some other information that Gaurav will share with us, perhaps maybe a link to where you can get his book, or links to websites and other information that you might want to get connected to, along with getting connected to him. I know you want to be. So thank you very much again, Gaurav, and blessings on everything that you're trying to do. And we'll say goodbye to everybody. Yeah. So happy front running, everyone, and stay with me, Gaurav, for a second, okay? Bye-bye.